So there's no such thing as normal. You just allow yourself to be conditioned to something that you call normal. Good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Monday Morning Moments with Mark. I hope this finds you well. So, as you saw in the open this week, we're going to talk a little bit about what is normal and how we condition ourselves to that, or condition ourselves to extraordinary things until they become ordinary. But before we get into all that, we always have to have the funniest thing. And the funniest thing this week came from Miss V speaking a little too fast. Her mouth was moving faster than her brain, and that's okay. It happens to the very best of us. And as soon as she said it, she knew she was going to be on this episode. So let me set the scene for you. We're sitting around watching Deer Meat for Dinner, which, by the way, is a great show on YouTube. If you haven't checked him out, check it out. Very detailed presentation that guy does on those different things. So we're watching him, and they're out hunting hogs, right? And he's using all kinds of like thermal optics and stuff so he can see these hogs at night. And there's multiple different ones out there. And she's like, well, how's he going to shoot them all? I said, well, he better be real fast because as soon as he hits the first one, it's going to run off squealing and the rest are going to take off running. And she goes, well, why don't he just use a silencer? I said, looked her dead in the face. What's that gonna do for the squealing hog? She just all of a sudden realized silencing the gun's not gonna help the fact that that hog's gonna make a squeal once he gets hit with that bullet. So, anyways, we laughed hysterically, and that's the funniest thing that happened this week. So, moving on to conditioning. In that case, Miss V was conditioned. She was thinking about the gunshot sound, not the squealing hog sound. So she made a response based on the condition in her brain. But I don't want to talk about classical or operant conditioning or any of that kind of stuff. I want to talk about mental conditioning and why it is important for us. But first of all, we have to talk a little bit about what conditioning really is. So, conditioning happens over time when we establish a normal. And in a minute, I'll talk about how there's no such thing as normal. But um, what we're doing is normal, whatever it is established by the conditions that exist. And those can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social conditions that set up the criteria for the norms. Okay, in a sense, could also be broader cultural aspect, encompassing kind of all of those. But anyways, what happens is we adapt or assimilate, or as some you may want to consider a type of evolution, we evolve to fit to or coexist with those conditions that I mentioned. But the reality of it is that as soon as one of those conditions change, normal has whatever normal should be has now changed. So there's no such thing as normal. You just allow yourself to be conditioned to something that you call normal. Think about that one for a minute. I'll give you an example. Whatever your normal is somebody else's abnormal, and vice versa. So think about this. If you've never flown on a plane before, and you go, that's a whole abnormal, like extraordinary experience to you. Some people work on them and do it every day of their life, and it's very normal to them. Some people have never flown first class, and to do it the first time is an extraordinary, abnormal experience. You may be sitting next to someone who does it every day, flying for business, and that's their normal. That person may get called to fly on a private jet one day, and what is abnormal to them is perfectly normal to the other person. So there's all kinds. Not only are there levels to it, but whatever your normal is somebody else's totally abnormal situation. What happens is conditioning allows us to see the extraordinary as something ordinary. The example I want to give for that, but before I give the example, I could go on this wild tangent about how we go through this process of desensitization, especially in today's society, where everything is, we're always constantly exposed to these things, where we get desensitized through sensationalization, and that's a form of conditioning. I'm not going to go down that road. What I do want to talk about is the example of elite Olympic athletes, or really any kind of elite athletics, whether or not it's at the Olympic level or not. But Olympic athletes are an example of extraordinary performance that in their culture, in that environment, it becomes completely normal to them. Everyone is performing at that level. Where average person like me is going to be like, wow, this is what you are doing is abnormal to me. It's very extraordinary. But to them, because of the conditioning that they've been through, it is very ordinary performance to them. Another example of this is when you hear of people who've accomplished this great feat, and they've worked hard, they've been through the process, they took the steps to get there, and then they say, "Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined." And I'm like, bro, you weren't dreaming wild enough if that's the case. You should have been able to see yourself here. You should have known you were going to get here. This should have been the plan all along. But a lot of times people get to somewhere and it's even better than they had envisioned. But I say that it should be the other way around, where it's like, this seems pretty normal. You should have seen what it looked like in my head. You have to condition yourself to the success you want so that it does not seem extraordinary to you when you arrive at it. That's a necessary component to believing that it belongs to you, which are two things that you have to do. You have to condition yourself to accept it and see it and be it before, and then believe that it belongs to you. You have to believe that better is an option, but before that, you have to condition yourself to its existence at all. So what we need to do, and the whole point of this whole thing, is taking time to mentally condition ourselves to the success that belongs to us. And I don't care if you're talking about conditioning yourself to just the next little micro success that's part of a process, a great big long process that you're involved in, or whether or not you're visualizing the big long term success and you're doing that dreamy, let me see where I'm going to be in 10 years or 15 or whatever it is from now. Either way, you still have to condition yourself so that when you get there, it's already normal so that you can live when you get there. It takes away the learning curve of each progressive level of success. You already know how to operate in that environment because you've conditioned yourself to be able to do so. So, take some time this week, think about a couple different things in your life that might seem extraordinary to you, and envision yourself living that way all the time if it's part of your success plan, and see what you can make become an ordinary part of your life. Have a great week.